I'm Connor Old, and this is Old's Oscar Countdown. And today we're in a new setting. Today we're doing the very first video in my university dorm here. And the last two previous episodes I've had the pleasure of doing it in my home, a little more spacious, a little more different, although I think this is going to be a unique setup. I got my monitor here. I've been doing different things to the show, but if you're new to the show, what we do every single week is we break down a new Oscar category, talk about the general idea of what makes it great. From then we go on and what I think is going to get nominated, and then some possible ones. Now this series runs all the way until Oscar, so this could be in March because it's delayed now because of the Olympics. So it's going to be really long, sort of, interesting experience up to the Oscars. I've got my picks. This is going to be a really interesting, fun episode for me because I think the actor race right now is really dominated by two. Maybe people only say one is really like a lock. So it's going to be very interesting this year to see which one prevails, which one doesn't. I think I've got a pretty good sense of it, but I'm making some interesting sort of different bold picks that may surprise some of you, but I will back them. This episode did require a lot of research and a lot of time, so I'd love to appreciate if you give me a thumbs up, comment below. All I'm doing here, nothing for the money, just because I love it, because I'm passionate about it, and I want to create an awesome film community. So, if you're new, maybe you're coming back for the first time since last year's Old's Oscar Countdown. What we do every single week now is a new segment called Connor's Corner. What I found last time was that it was a little dated, because I do everything like 6 months in advance, essentially. So then I have to redo everything again in one final video. This time it gives me a little bit more of a timeliness to it, and essentially what it is, I talk about movies that are rising and movies that are also falling. So the rising right now is Get Out. This was definitely one that I had on my radar. I put it in the Best Picture. I think it's going to get screenplay, but I think the showing that it did at Gotham Awards was really impressive. It did very well. Got nominated for Best Picture. Jordan Peele, I didn't think it got nominated for director, but it got screenplay. It got even Best Actor for Daniel Kaluuya. So I think this is a serious Oscar contender. Even though it was released in February, even though it's a horror movie, I think it transcends those. And it really cements it as a great movie because it's got that 99% Rotten Tomatoes. It's still going to hold on, and I think it's one of those movies where it's lasted this long. I think it's going to still last and maintain, and will deserve, because that's a great movie. And then in regards to falling, Blade Runner 2049, which is super disappointing to me, one of my favorite movies of the year, but it's going to get cinematography, but I don't think it's going to get director. Even though the success of Denis Villeneuve's last movie, Arrival, looked something before like Sicario that didn't do that well. And this movie, I mean, it didn't do the awards festival run. It got a lot of great reviews, but there is some people that just don't like it. It's sort of weird. It's a box office bomb, and you have to realize, like, oh, okay, you have to sit down and watch this 2-hour and 45-minute deep philosophical sci-fi movie where there's not a lot of actions and not a lot of questions answered, and the only sort of thing is, oh, it's got Denis Villeneuve and Ryan Gosling, but I don't think that's going to necessarily prevail it for the future right now. So for those right there, it's got a methodical pace, things like that. For those right there, we have Get Out rising, so definitely put out Get Out in a lot of your Oscar nominations. I'm thinking, I'm thinking screenplay for sure. I don't think it could get maybe any acting nominees, which is maybe disappointing. Possibly Daniel Kaluuya, who knows? We're talking about Best Actor. He's not even in my possible right now, but he could sneak up. I think Get Out is a serious contender for a nomination, especially if they want to appeal to that broad sense of the sort of the youth, because they had 10 nominations. I think it's going to get in. But still, it's horror. There's still some things that are sort of pushing it back from not getting that full nomination guaranteed, but it's rising for sure. And really just cementing itself. Okay, now let's move over into my Best Actor picture prediction. Number one being, you guessed it, Gary Oldman, Darkest Hour. This is number one for sure, because this is definitely the only lock. I think that Darkest Hour, when people talk about it, I think it's going to get a lot of nominations. I think it's going to do very well at the Oscars. Maybe not with wins, but definitely with nominations. And I think when everyone talks about it, similar to Casey Affleck last year, oh, Manchester by the Sea, they said, oh, Casey Affleck is phenomenal in that movie. And then they said, okay, yeah, the screenplay is good as well. Same thing with Darkest Hour. It's like Gary Oldman transforms. You look at him, it's like, wow, it doesn't even look like Gary Oldman. It's very much an Oscar movie. It's a British guy playing a historical British figure, but they say the movie sort of transcends that. They say this is Joe Wright's best movie. Of course, Joe Wright, I talked about in the Best Picture with The Darkest Hour, has had a lot of good success and a run with Atonement and Pride and Prejudice. Movies like that have done well at the Oscars, so I don't think Darkest Hour is the exception from that. The problem with Darkest Hour is that Gary Oldman is such a standout, so I think that just more cements him of this a lock in the Best Actor race, and he just tips checks all the Oscar boxes. You know, he transformed physically. He's got incredible makeup. He maybe overshined some of his competitors, which we'll talk about next week with Best Supporting Actress and Kristen Scott Thomas. See if she gets in. But the thing is that because he overshines things, he is the central point. He's on the poster. He's Winston Churchill. He's the main standout. And you know, he went from Gary Oldman from sort of like villain, action villain role to more like a serious actor. He was nominated before for Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. So I think don't deny the fact that he could get in and that he could possibly win. Right now he's definitely the lock for nomination, and I think he's possibly a winner because the next ones are just so fluid and interesting. It all depends on the movie's wave, and I think Darkest Hour right now has the strongest sort of flow going in towards, at least for a guarantee nomination. So Gary Oldman, check him off. Now, Daniel Day-Lewis, this is going to be a little bit long one, but I'm sure it's worth it. This is what I did a lot of my research because I was wondering, Daniel Day-Lewis rarely gets beat. The last 2 times he's been nominated, he won with There Will Be Blood in 2007 and with Lincoln in 2012. For playing like incredible roles, he transforms. This is supposedly his last career choice. Like this is going to be his last movie. So apparently he's in retirement after this. So this is a big deal for him. Will he go out swinging? Who knows? The trailer came out. I saw it. Interesting trailer. But the thing is that here I pulled out some stats here. He's one of the nominations is a good chance because he's the only actor, or that the only actor that has won 3 Oscars for Best Lead Actor. There's coming in a couple others, including Jack Nicholson, who won 2 for Lead Actor and 1 for Supporting. But even Meryl Streep, something that beloved Meryl Streep won 1 for Supporting. This guy does not do supporting roles. He is the lead, and he wins for lead. And he is an unstoppable force. I mean, even when Denzel Washington was campaigning really hard for Flight, he won in that year for Lincoln. So he's sort of like this thing. Oh, Daniel Day-Lewis is nominated, win. It's almost like that, right? But I pulled some interesting stats that say otherwise. And even though he's in the number 2 position, because I think he'll get nominated, despite the performance of the movie, just because he is Daniel Day-Lewis, this is his last movie, he's going into retirement, and there's a lot of things that are going in his favor, but there's a lot of things going against his favor. Now take a look at this. So yeah, okay, here. Let's take a look at his last 3 movies, which he won an Oscar for, okay? So Lincoln, 12 nominations, 2 wins, and Best Picture and Best Director nominations. There Will Be Blood, 8 nominations, 2 wins, nominated for Best Director and Best Picture. My Left Foot, 5 nominations, 2 wins, nominated for Best Picture and Best Director. The commonalities being all the movies that he's won were nominated for Best Picture and Best Director, meaning that the Academy liked the movies too, and that's where they did it. They gave it to him and another category. So 2 wins for Lincoln and There Will Be Blood and My Left Foot, and these were sort of serious contenders. Even something like My Left Foot, where it was only 5 nominations. The problem, and now let's even look at his other 2 nominated movies where he didn't win. Gangs of New York, 10 nominations, including Best Picture and Best Director. In the Name of the Father, 7 nominations, including Best Picture and Best Director. So what I'm sort of saying with these stats, I know there's a lot of stats to throw at you, but every single time he's been nominated for Best Picture. The movie itself has been nominated for Best Picture and Best Director. The question is, when he gets nominated and doesn't win, it gets nominated for Best Picture and Director. The question I'm questioning is the validity of Phantom Thread. I think it's coming out in an awkward sense that it's going to get overshadowed by something like The Greatest Showman and The Post. I'm betting on those 2 movies in that December 25th release date. His last movie, Inherent Vice, didn't do so well. The Master, which both I think are really good movies. The Master I really enjoy, got a lot of acting nominations. The interesting thing here is that I question the validity of the movie because Phantom Thread I don't think is going to get director for Paul Thomas Anderson. It's even on the cusp right now for Best Picture. I think it's going to get a few nominations, you know, costume design, maybe cinematography. Daniel Day-Lewis I think is going to get in there, of course, but I don't think he's going to win. And even that questions the validity of him getting nominated because the strength of Phantom Thread I think will be a good movie, but I don't think it will be this transcendent movie that people are sort of guessing it and hoping it is. So even if Daniel Day-Lewis is going to have to win, it has to be based on Phantom Thread getting nominated for Best Picture and Best Director and getting plenty of nominations. And even then, it might not get a lot of nominations. And then it might not get nominated for Best Picture or for Best Director or one or the other. And then it sort of slowly diminishes Daniel Day-Lewis's chances. So now, when I think these 2, Gary Oldman and Daniel Day-Lewis, are locks, but I don't think Daniel Day-Lewis is going to win this year. It's maybe a bit of a bold statement, but you have to pull off quite a feat to do it. And the thing is that right now, I don't think Phantom Thread is in good shape to get Daniel Day-Lewis to win, which is a shame if this really is his last movie, but I haven't seen it. Plus, he's not going through a physical transformation. He just looks like an old man, and maybe a boring movie. People are saying maybe not that intriguing, maybe towards the older Academy numbers, which could get it nominated, but I don't think it's going to get the director and picture nominations. Possibly picture, but I don't think it's going to get director. And even if it does, the chances are that he's not going to get it, which is a shame, but I think right now Gary Oldman is the front runner for sure. All right, number 3, Hugh Jackman, The Greatest Showman. A lot of people don't even have him on this list, but I think it's based on the merit of The Greatest Showman. I think if this does well and people like it, it can sort of surprise, get maybe possibly a picture, but I think, you know, costume design, score, Hugh Jackman possibly. Well, I think it is, but I think this is also a combination of this role, which is the Oscar sort of December 25th release date, plus Hugh Jackman's Logan performance, because his Logan performance, I think, was an incredible performance. It was a great send-off, this being his last Wolverine movie, a character he's played for 17 years. I think the Academy knows this, they appreciate the movie, because it's more than a superhero movie. I think it transcends the superhero genre in that sense, and becomes more than just a superhero movie, and as more of a great movie, because it's so grounded, sort of like that Dark Knight in that sense. And I think even something with Deadpool last year, or it could be Wonder Woman this year, they want to nominate something. They want sort of that superhero thing. They want that general appeal. So this way could be an in for it. We're saying we're not nominating him for Logan, where maybe he should be nominated, but we'll nominate for this great performance in this Oscar type movie, December 25th. I remember it. Greatest Showman. He plays P.T. Barnum, a biographical character, and I think people like that will push for Logan. And the thing is that there's not going to be any vote splitting, I don't think. You know, we look at last year, it was a great example of a vote splitting where Amy Adams, I think, was clearly vote split between Arrival and Nocturnal Animals, and I cut her out and she didn't get nominated, which is a shame, because she's incredible in Arrival and best performance in years. Of anybody. I know I always have to have a chance to talk about Amy Adams, but you have that, and then you also have Andrew Garfield, but that was a different scenario, because he had Silence and Hacksaw Ridge, but clearly Hacksaw Ridge was the push. Silence only got 1 nomination. I even think, yeah, I got 1, maybe 2, and really Hacksaw Ridge was the push there. So I think that's the difference between this and something like Amy Adams. There's not going to be any vote splitting for Logan, because I don't think Logan has really a chance aside from 1 category, maybe 2. So I think they're going to push for Greatest Showman, and then they have those added boosts of the Logan votes who would have nominated for Logan, but realize that, okay, people are pushing for Greatest Showman, he's sort of campaigning for Greatest Showman, push him for that, and then it pushes him over the edge. I think right now Hugh Jackman has a pretty good shot, but the thing is, the one negative is we haven't seen Greatest Showman. We don't know how well it's going to do. It could tank at the box office, but this could be a really great sort of Christmas surprise movie. That and The Post are sort of 2 movies I think will rise, but there's only 1, and right now my bet's on The Post. So we'll see how Greatest Showman will do. I don't even have it in Best Picture right now, so we'll see. All right. Next is Jake Gyllenhaal, Stronger. Positive. This thing right now, I think, is there's a lot of boxes for successes and there's a lot of boxes for failures. Now, the successes are they sort of snubbed him for Nightcrawler. I think a lot of people recognize that. He had an incredible performance. People thought he should have won. He didn't even get nominated for the Oscar, and people were very upset by that. And then even last year, there was sort of a late push for him in Nocturnal Animals, and some speculate that he was the 6th or the 7th spot, which is really interesting because that sort of 5 was cemented of last year for Best Actor. Wasn't very interesting. We knew that from the beginning pretty much, aside from Viggo Mortensen, who sort of snuck in late. But I think Jake Gyllenhaal, they snubbed him for Nightcrawler. Even possibly he was in the running for Nocturnal Animals, but I think this is a great movie where people who are fans of Stronger will vote for Jake Gyllenhaal in this. It checks the boxes of he plays a biographical character and sort of a real drama that doesn't take its subject matter like jokingly. It's very serious, it's very truthful, honest. I mean, even they were doing the campaign was the real life guy and Jake Gyllenhaal. They were doing the interviews together in, you know, the press rooms or whatnot. And he sort of transforms. He plays. He has no legs because this is based on the Boston Marathon bombings, where the man Jeff Bowman was at the bombing and his legs got blown off because of the bomb, and now he's going around and sort of that transformation afterwards and sort of the struggle that it takes. But the problem is that this is the only nomination that this movie's probably going to get, and this came out in September. It severely underperformed at the box office. It also just didn't have the traction that it needed because it came out in TIFF, did well, came out in September immediately after, and these September movies that are not that come out theatrically in September don't really last away. You know, something like La La Land, for example, came out in December, but it had a little buzz at TIFF, and the main public couldn't see it until December, right? So this coming out in September, not getting a lot of buzz. I don't think that movie's going to do very well. Possibly if this was released later, Tatiana Maslany could get in for Best Supporting Actress. I don't have her in there, but I think Jake Gyllenhaal, because of the other factors, I think he sort of transcends, or I can't use that word, but like goes past the fact that it's only get one nomination. But the thing is, if like Stronger only gets one nomination, Greatest Showman only gets a couple, Phantom Thread gets a couple, it's gonna be like, there's only a spot for sort of that really great actor in a movie that we don't really like, if that makes any sense. Then now let's move into the fifth choice, which is Tom Hanks' The Post. I'm missing one key one that I will talk in my possibles and I'll explain later, but Tom Hanks' The Post, the thing is, you can look at Hanks two different ways. His last three really great performances were Captain Phillips, which he should have gotten nominated for but didn't, and then Bridge of Spies, which he should have gotten nominated for but he didn't. Sully, which it's alright, he didn't need to get nominated, but he was in the race. Sort of like these three great movies where it's sort of like the Tom Hanks trilogy of playing people who are good at their job, and he, as an actor, is good at his job. I just think that's sort of a funny trilogy type thing where he plays Captain Phillips, who's good at his job, and he does a great job of, Tom Hanks does a great job of acting, playing Captain Phillips. So he plays Captain Phillips, then he plays, of course, Sully from Sully, and so you can look at it two different ways. They snubbed him for those 3 times, he's not going to get in. They don't like Hanks, they gave him 2 Oscars already. Or they're going to say, okay, we've snubbed him a lot. He's had this consistent run of good movies. We'll give it to him. I also really believe in the success of The Post. I'm sort of betting down on that. And I think that The Post is going to do well. I think he's going to get carried by the movie, but he is in the 5th slot because he could possibly be replaced with one of my possibles, which my number 1 possible, Timothée Chalamet, Call Me By Your Name. This is sort of the big surprise that maybe since a lot of people think he's a guaranteed lock-in. I haven't seen Call Me By Your Name. The thing is, he might get overshadowed possibly by the success of the supporting actress. The thing is, this movie is really loved, so if he could get in, but the supporting actors overshadow him, I think possibly with Armie Hammer and Michael Stolberg fighting out for Best Supporting Actor, so he may get left to the side. They also don't like young kids, especially in the male category. There's no ingenue for the male. He's 21 years old. He could get sort of carried by the success of the film and get nominated. However, the fact that he's 21, he gets overshadowed by supporting, and he's not necessarily a recognizable name. He's a rising talent, but I don't think right now he's going to get it in, which I haven't seen the movie. Maybe he deserves to get in. Maybe it's more of a lead performance than I think it is, but right now it seems to me as a little bit more of an ensemble, and based on Oscar history, they won't nominate a guy like this. Alright, finally, James Franco, The Disaster Artist. Maybe people are laughing or something, but he does an awesome job in the trailers from playing Tommy Wiseau. He totally nails it. The Disaster Artist is their only nomination, I think, possibly even adapted screenplay. I think The Disaster Artist did its proper TIFF run. It's going through the festival stages. I think A24 is going to push this sort of slightly, but enough for the fans to really push through it. Of course, everyone remembers The Room. It's this cult movie, and if this sort of does justice and is a good movie, which is what I've been hearing, and James Franco transforming as this thing, even though it's this comedy sort of silly movie, they like James Franco before. I mean, you remember 127 Hours, right? So they're not prone to nominating James Franco, so I think he's sort of an underdog right now if A24 decides to push it, but they have Lady Bird and Florida Project, and the Disaster Artist might get forgotten. But I think if they push for it, and if they play the smart, James Franco could get in for Best Actor, and the film could get in for Best Adapted Screenplay based on the book, The Disaster Artist. So that'll be interesting. Okay, guys, that is the end of my episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you comment below. Let me know who you think your predictions are. If maybe I'm stupid, maybe Hugh Jackman won't get nominated for Logan, or Timothée Chalamet is that definite guaranteed. Maybe what you thought of my interesting analysis of Daniel Day-Lewis. Watch out for that. Tell your friends. Make you seem smarter. Anyways, guys, I'm Connor Old, and until next time, stay tuned.